Hello and Allah Apa, the Baha'i greeting to all the people of the planet. My name is Abdu'l. I am the elder of Baha'u'llah in the planet for the time that he likes me to continue. Time right now is 11:20, today is 20th of the December 2013. The topic is the revelation of the Bab, the writing of the Bab that mostly is in manuscript form, and it's a murky topic. I've taken this time to explain them as much as I can understand it. Last night I brought up the scholars, those who have some opinions. We found out that Muslims, those who are not Baha'i and Babi, they have written a lot of books about the Baha'i faith and the Babi faith, and they're all malicious, revolving around the convenient truth that they have. Muhammad is the last prophet of God, the promised one is still alive, because that's what public accepts it, and they're afraid of the truth, and plus they make money for saying those things. Based on that, in the recent years has become a signature of faithfulness to the Islam that anybody who wants to get up high on the system, they have to somehow or rather attack Baha'i faith. It's the rank of the ladders for them. They have to do it to initiate themselves, into the system of the hierarchy that they have. Tonight I'm going to talk about some so-called academic work. Those who are supposedly gone to universities and the studies, and they're trying to talk in a manner that makes sense, supposedly. People that have neither the opinion towards Baha'i faith or against it. A scientific approach, shall we say, with no prejudice involved. So there has been, on the very beginning of the Baha'i faith, there's the history made by Nicolas, the French son of the ambassador of France in Iran. And then you have Count de Gobineau, who has written also about the history of the Baha'i faith. But Edward G. Brown was around the time of Azal, and he started to know about this revelation of this Baha'i faith, Babi faith. And he didn't have any sources. He asked the wrong guys for the information. That would have been Azal, who provided him a lot of material that he wrote it himself for him. I've spoken about some of them to you before. Lots of it are not of Bab, or it is infringed on, or it is perverted. He has put his hand in sometimes. There's a book called the Book of Jaza, a book that's not the Book of the Bab, even it's a reference there that the Bab died. And with a lot of crazy things in it. Those kind of information was given to Edward G. Brown, and poor guy took it that it's right, and he commented on it sometimes, or didn't understand it very well. The famous one of them is a history written called Noqtatul Qaf, which means the point in the letter K. Letter K doesn't have a point, but just this is the name of the book. Attributed to somebody that when the book came out, Abdu'l ordered Abul Paygani, definitely number one scholars in the Baha'i faith, to provide an answer, because the historian said that he knows him, and he has written a marvelous book called Kashf al-Ghita, Unveiling the Veil, and it is both in the Dr. Cole. If you ever go to the Baha'is, you can find that book. Although during that book, Abul Fazal died and Mehdi Golpaygani continued the book, which he published some letter in the book that was attributed to the Bab and has become a fictitious document, caused a lot of headache for the Baha'is. So much about Edward G. Brown, which tried to understand these things. It was very difficult. His sources were not very fine. So it comes to later, among this so-called Western Baha'is, I should say, a fellow by the name Denis Mac Eoin. I'm hoping that I'm saying his name right. This Mr. Mac Eoin, he became a Baha'i at 1965, apparently according to Wikipedia. I don't have much information more than what I see on the internet right now about him. And around 1980, after 15 years, he left the Baha'i faith. He had a problem with the administrator, not surprising. And he wrote a few books. He wrote a few books. One of them is this book. It says the sources for early Baha'i doctrine and history. I bring the book here. And recently he wrote this book, Messiah of Shiraz. That's the book. So I'm going to discuss these two books, including another book. Let me bring out book 2 for you so you know it. This book is Resurrection and Renewal. It's written by an Iranian of Jewish faith, but all his families were Baha'is. But this guy, Mr. Amanat, again, he had some difficulty, I guess, with the administration. He left the faith. He's not a registered Baha'i. So I studied this book of Mr. Mac Eoin. I was expecting him with his PhD. As it says, he learned Arabic and Persian in the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. I was expecting him to have a fair account of what he has seen, a report of what scientifically observable, tangible things, without the interpretation, unless it's scientific, you know. A good hermeneutics, as like this other guy likes to call it, to bring on the Babs. But it is not so. This man, which I like to call him Denis Mac Eoin, really, has brought some serious charges, maliciously, against the writing of the Bab, and basically cheated the Baha'is. This gentleman was a Baha'i, 1965 registered, and 1980 he left the Baha'i faith. But this is what he says in his book, Introduction. At 1977, that is 3 years before he left Baha'i faith. In 1977, he goes to Iran. I don't know how he worked his way out, this weasel, that could get the universal laws of justice allows him to go in Israel and consult the original writings, but they let him go. The Persian National Spiritual Assembly, they let him to go to their archive and look at the original manuscript. Hands of the Cause of God, Hassan Balyuzi, according to him, thanks him that sent him there. In Iran, it says the Ashraf Seisani, they housed him. And all this time, this man had an ulterior motive in the back of his mind. Right there, he says also he thanks Fakhr-o-Taj Dawlatabadi, which is an Azali, and it's the enemy of the Baha'is. I wonder about his sincerity, if he can provide us some answers. When did he develop these ideas to go against the faith this way? It happened overnight? Or he was cooking on the back of his mind with his accomplice all the way from the beginning, cheating the Baha'is to get to their books? If the Baha'is, they knew in Tehran he's also in touch with Fakhr-o-Taj Dawlatabadi, do you think any of the Baha'is would even give two hoots about him? No, he lied. See, he's a liar. How would you, or among the Baha'is, as he mentioned in all these committees and everything else, you know Baha'u'llah is the manifestation of God, Bab is the manifestation of God, and you come and say all this absurd, sheer insult to the founder. At least if you could back it up. It just seems you have some kind of enmity, something really wrong inside you, mister. You know, I don't know what to call you. You're the worst types of the covenant breakers that I know. Thanks to the Muslims. At least they write out loud, they say we're enemy and they write down things. You come down and get all the Baha'is around you, and then this is what you say, this is what the book you wrote after all of that? Well, if you would have told them in the beginning, do you think they would even let you to go to touch those things? So these are the questions we want to know. How did you go in 1977 in Iran, because 1979 was the revolution of Iran, you're already out, and after 3 years you're saying that you're not a Baha'i. Why? Because you took what you wanted, was to write down some kind of a book for yourself, and you think you've written the biggest things that the Baha'is are hiding. And this is, as I said, his books. I'm going to have to refer to a few part of these books to tell you where this man is coming from. So, it's amazing that how many people helped him, you know, to come down here. Let's take a look at this book, Messiah of Shiraz. I'm going to look at this, page 12. Do I have enough light around here? Yeah, probably I do. All right. I've written it down here. One of the things that this Mr. Know-all, he thinks he's the master of all, and I cannot understand, in one of his interviews, Marjan Momen, which is a Baha'i, how he sucks up to him. It's unbelievable. Even Nader Saidi is afraid to talk to him about him. Dr. Juan Cole, he thinks that he is in charge. And I didn't need to read all of the book, believe me, because I've seen things that is just unbelievable. One of the things, for example, he likes to do, and is followed by few of them, that including Juan Cole, and there's another guy who in accident got sick and is trying to write a translation, an English translation of writing of the Bab, and his copies, Lamdan I think his name is, absolutely absurd copies. I don't know why they call these things the writing of the Bab. Back to this fellow, this Denis Mac Eoin. He insists that Baha'u'llah's name should be Baha'u'llah. That is B-A-H-A-U. He doesn't want to put the U in there. He wants to put Baha'u'llah. Baha, of course, means glory. Allah means God, glory of God. But this happened to be the name of a person. We have names. For example, Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, his name is Ruhollah. And you go and write whose name? Ruhallah. Well, would anybody change somebody's name the way it's pronounced? This is Baha'u'llah. Baha is adjective. It has to take you at the end of it, before the word Allah. Read the grammar of the W right, the Arabic grammar. You'll find it there. But I'm not even speaking grammar now. I'm saying that the name of Baha'u'llah is Baha'u'llah. Everybody knows it. Now you tell them, no, your name is Baha'u'llah. You change the U into A. Why? What kind of problem do you have in your head? Have you examined it lately, mister? And then, how superficial is his understanding of the writing? I have no qualm with that, because as he says in the book, these are all manuscript, handwritten, private hand, and there are certain shorthand forms sometimes involved in it. You gotta be a serious expert to understand these things. So I give it to him that he couldn't read it. But if you can't read it or just get a name, basically you're a curator, you try to say, cataloging these writings, and now you're trying to understand its content. So there's a tablet of the Bab. It is called Suluk el Allah. Suluk means a journey, going towards. El Allah means towards God. This is an Arabic word. Shoghi Effendi translate that in the Book of Certitude, those who tread. That is called Suluk. But Persian, they take the Arabic word, in the Persian language they have a quite different meaning. For example, Suluk, they say that you have to have a good Suluk with people. Suluk with people, that means to have a good behavior, good attitude, a good conduct, really, what it means. But in the Arabic writing, it doesn't have the Persian meaning. Suluk means journey. Suluk al-Allah means journey to God. That's what Nader Saidi has translated. I accept that translation. You know how he translates that tablet? Good behavior. Well, read the content of the tablets. For God's sake, one of your fan, Mr. Juan Cole, already has put it on his website. Read the content of it. It's talking about going towards God and the pillar of the understanding and the faith and all that. It's got nothing to do with good behavior. How do you translate things, mister? Mr. Mac Eoin. So, there are a few things he has said that's really hurtful for a Baha'i to even talk about it. But I'm doing this because I have seen, for some reason, he has gained some kind of a popularity, and there has become a trend to follow him because he uses these enormous words, so alien, that I cannot even say it myself after being 35 years in this country. And then accuses Bob of speaking hard and difficult words. So you go take these words to the people in the streets. They wouldn't know. Okay, number one. in this book called The Messiah of Shiraz. Here. It's the book again. Thick book. What does it say? Page 649. He says, let's get it from somewhere. A mishmash of rules and regulation that at times are little more than mere whimsy, revolving around some of the Bab's own obsessions about the cleanliness, polite behavior, and elegance. It is a Sharia, but not in any practical sense. Certainly it does not seem to be going anywhere. That's his statement. Let's read it. Let me try to illustrate this briefly, he says. Here and there we find indications that the Bab had been impressed by the European. Well, that's a charge. Bring it over. Couple of places Bab has said that, then he says it's amazing, Alice, that they cannot understand the faith. Many hundreds of places also he criticized them for not being Muslim. He says it's all vain, all of it is in vain. But nevertheless, let's read it and then before commenting. Here and there he says that the Bab had been impressed by European, that he wanted his followers to emulate them. Lord, thus carrying arm is permissible only in times of necessity. Is it Bab learned from European? Okay. Sitting on chairs is made obligatory. The cleanliness displayed by the Christian is advocated. Animals are not to be cruelly treated or overworked. Children should not be severely beaten. The printing of book, even scripture, is recommended. There is a prohibition of the study of logic or dead languages. Some forms of legal and cleanliness are abolished, and a limited form of interest is allowed to merchants. So you got the list of the things that he says. According to him here, right now, this is his claim here, Bab was somehow impressed by the European, learned from them not to be cruel with animals. Europeans were cruel to themselves, killing themselves. The First World War, Second World War, just the most ferocious of all the mankind that we know of. The white race is. We have seen now and then there was a Genghis Khan among the Mongolians, not as many among the Arabs and Muslims or blacks. We have seen it, the Spaniards, basically European and English, they have displayed serious violence. So Germans in the Second World War. This is what Europeans were. Way before Bab. This has happened after Bab, God knows, in 1940s. Bab's is 1800. Where did he learn from them to be kind to animals? What are the records of the Europeans that are kind to animals? And then prohibition and the study of the logic. Did Europeans say that this logic should not be studied? Is that why Bab copied them? Just look at this book, this page, 649. And to the word of this Mac Eoin, that he says that the Bab had been impressed by European and that he wanted his followers to emulate them, to copy them, to follow them. And those are the things Europeans would do at those days, where they were not cruel to the animals. Wouldn't they severely punish their children? You heard the story of Beethoven. His father beat the hell out of the child so many times for the smallest little things that Beethoven became deaf. This is what the Europeans were. And Bob learned from them that they should not beaten the children. That is absurd, isn't it? Unfair, at the least. This is one of them. Number 2. Now, number 2, it says, this is quote, he's talking about Bob. We find him laying claim not only to the prophethood, but to the quasi-divinity that not frequently is indistinguishable from out-and-out Godhead. Now he says he's not understanding what Bob is trying to say, but sometimes it's prophethood, and other time he says it's manifestation of God, or I am God. He's objecting at that. And then he says he has studied religions. I've explained this topic to you. Just like Jesus Christ says, I am Son of Man, and then I'm Son of God. There are places he says, I'm just a man, and then places that he says he's God. Abdu'l answered it. He says it's like a sun in front of the mirror in front of the sun. Because the sun, the mirror reflects the sun, you can say the mirror is the sun. That's true, because nothing in the mirror is but the sun. Or you can say the reality is that this is just a picture of the sun and this is only a mirror. In this case, Jesus is a man, but he's God. Is this so hard for this scholar, to understand? His account is vandalism of the truth. It's the belligerent of the scholarship. I don't want to say more than that. If I'd seen him personally. So this is another thing, that he's objecting at the Bob supposedly not understood. And all along from 1965 to 1980, he was a Baha'i. And he has read all these books. Probably, he must have. He should have known this. This is a malicious attack. He knows the answer to it, but he just nevertheless liked to attack it. Number 3, he says numerous references. That's quotations from the page Azali Babism right here. This is a part of the book. The page, I do not see, for some reason, it does not have a page number, but it is in this book that I've taken that page. Yeah, that would be then page 591 of this book. Numerous references in writings by the Bab from this period seems to provide a strong evidence that Azal, also referred to as Al-Wahid, Samare, was not regarded by him as his chief deputy following the death of the most of the original Babi hierarchy. Where the hell have you seen this, my man? Numerous references from the Bab is about Azal, Unless you have read those books like Book of Jaza manufactured by Azal and his friends where they say God has elected Yahya and his brother Jawad. The strongest one of all of this that is claimed by the Azalis, your friend Juan Colas translated it on H. Baha'is. You know what he tells him in that tablet? He tells him, do not pervert the word of God. You tell me, how many people have you ever known Bob have told them like this, do not pervert the word of God? Nobody except that son of a gun. Because he knew he was going to do it. And as far as inspiration concerned, you do not understand the level of the inspirations. In Quran is written, revealed by God. God sent his message, inspired the bee. The actual insect is also inspired by God. So, what inspiration Azal had? What are these numerous references that you're saying? I've seen all of those writings of the Bab. I've actually typed them. I'm going to publish 20 books of the Bab. What are these numerous references, mister, that you're giving and saying? Haven't you read the book of Bayan? There he says, Bob, in this dispensation there is no successor. He says that. The reason that Bob has appointed Azal to be the chief of the Babi, he don't know it, let me tell you, my boy. You know why? Because he knew the son of a bitch is going to create problem for Baha'u'llah. He knew it. Bob says, the God whom God shall make manifest, it's me, I am coming back. I am, he says, all of the prophets. I am the next one too. He knew of him going to do it. This title was given to him to restrict him, not to be able to say anything more than what Bob has told him. The same thing happened to your other companion. Too bad you haven't seen him. Hands of the Cause, Mason Remy. He was called Hands of the God, Hands of the Cause of God, so that he cannot, by the virtue of that title, he cannot claim anything more than what God told him you are. Azal became restricted by Bob as the chief of the Babi. Therefore, he cannot claim anything bigger than that. See how beautiful God restricts some people? Because they're egotistic. What God does, God feed their egos. Your kind is like that, mister. If somebody seriously respects you, too much word put on your head, you're going to respect him. These are the egotistic people. Arrogant people are like that. You want to make them to believe in you, start to say a lot of admiration words towards them. Then they obey you. Okay? This is it. So there is no numerous references. You're a stupid. You're an imbecile. You're blind. You're a fool. You must have got paid. And God knows who are your accomplice in this. How could you be a Baha'i and all of a sudden you turn around and talk like this? Because you wanted to get to the Baha'is, but you didn't know I'm around, eh? So, this is number 3 of the junks that this man has uttered. Let's get to the other one. I have I've looked at his interview that he had in radio Where Mojan Momin, I guess, was there too. I'm ashamed of you, Mr. Momin. How would you even get close to the proximity of this man? This is his word, Denis, the menace. He has regulations about how you should eat an egg. Quoting. He is accusing the Bab on bringing something like that up. That Bab saying to people there is regulation on how you eat egg. He has regulation about how should you eat an egg, or that a man and a woman can only exchange, or that a man and a woman can only exchange only, I think, it's 19 words between them. He had laws of fighting holy war and for conquering various countries in the neighborhood. He was an unusual character, and I don't think really he had least idea of prophesizing the coming of somebody after him. His ideas were frankly a lot more complex than that. You see what charges he's drawing against Bab? Now, questions about the laws of the Bab is a topic of its own. But he says he did not know that the slightest idea of prophesizing a person comes after him. Well, buddy, again, you have been reading some manuscript, not even reading it. Another admirer of yours, Amanat, has gone to the same BS like yours. And I'm going to bring that up too. If you read the book of names, I can bring it to you. 5, 6 places. Bob talks to the people when you see the promised one, he says. In one of the book of Asma, a partial, as you have seen them, they're all partials, part of it. Bob says that when you see the promised one, give him these 5 tumans of money. Give him the 5 tumans, buy something and give it, buy a gift for yourself and give a gift, buy a gift for promised one. That much clear was for him that he's on the way. And he has said to a few people that they're going to see him. What prophecy? It says when you're seeing him, that you're going to see him, it says. The letters of the living, to one of the Kateb, Ghazvini, Sayyid Karim Ghazvini, to others. He didn't know what he was prophesying? He had the least idea? Have you read these books, mister? Because I have all the copies, as I told you that. I have turned them into Microsoft Words and compared the copies with each other too. They're going to come up. Your ideas of understanding the writing of the Bab so belligerently, okay? You're judging who? And then he's objecting at the laws of the Bab. I don't know. You found the Baha'is are nice, gentle people, said, doesn't matter, their number is not big. I can attack them any which way I want. They're not going to do anything. If you had the guts, mister, you would talk about Islam and their rules like that. When Muhammad gets married a 9-year-old girl, Aisha, go talk about the laws of Quran. I don't need to bring it up here. Or the laws in Christianity even, where women are not even allowed to speak in the church. Aren't they more ridiculous than the laws of the Bab? But for your information, which you don't understand, I'm going to prove it to you psychologically why you can't understand. Anyways, talking to you is talking to a parrot. Many of the laws of the Bab that is being revealed purposely, that it cannot be carried on. Why would he say the book of Bayan is 19 units of 19 chapters each and then only 9 chapters, 10 chapters is revealed? Why? Why would he do that? Because God has seen it in the tradition of his relationship with people, that they tend to change things around. As long as I'm alive, nobody wants to follow me. They're all waiting to see when I die. As soon as I die, they start to give me credit. You know why? Because I'm not alive, I'm not around to claim those credits. I'm dead. They're going to give me credit. You know why? Because they don't have anything themselves. They're trying to sell me and make money out of it. You're one of them. And Bob knows that. He makes his religion to be impossible to be followed. So no Bobby can exist. So they don't become an obstacle in his next coming, which is Baha'u'llah. Do you see the policy of God now? Do you see the strategy of God? When he knows somebody is sick, then he talks to them this way. Those laws are not meant to be followed. I will speak more about what really the revelation of Bab is. Revelation of the Bab, unlike any other revelation, or similar to that of the John the Baptist, it's a transitional religion. It is not the destiny. Bab is taking people that are lost in a caravan. Take them to the city of Baha. On the way of the journey, he has rules and regulations. Naturally, when you reach the city, all those rules are abandoned, isn't it? The rules that Moses had for the Jews when they were traveling from Egypt to the destinations, it was not 10 commandments. It was all kind of strange rules. So these are transitional. This is why. And every one of them, there's a reasons for it. Because, as you have understood it, Mr. Mac Eoin, Bob is not a writer. He's not a philosopher. He's not an artist. You know, he doesn't postulate like you do. He's a leader. He's God. He's the creator of mankind in the form of man. He's writing his prescription. To know if it works, ask anybody that has any little thing, including yourself. I want you to answer this question to anybody on my behalf. If the Persians would have followed Bab and the Baha'i faith, would have they been in this situation that they are right now? Everyone tells you that no. Never mind they follow Bab or Baha'u'llah. Even if they knew what Bab and Baha'u'llah said, they would not fall into this abyss that they are in right now. A touch of it would have saved them. Now you're objecting to something way bigger than your head, mister. Don't know it either. Number 5. This is good. See, in number 5, in your book, page 12. Let me give an introduction of what he says here. I brought this before to you. When the 11th Imam of Islam, the successor of Muhammad, had, according to the Muslim today, had married the daughter of the Caesar of Rome, who became a slave to his son, and out of that marriage, a 12th Imam was born, which is all hoax. I proved it to you before. And because there was nothing like that, 4 people, they got up, they said, let's save the public. Let's say that Imam is hidden. It's good. We're going to make money too, because there's called share of the Imam. People have to pay tax, donations. They're going to have to give it to them. And they made it, and people bought it because they were thirsty. However, there were not more than 4. He asked this question, this Mac Eoin, in page 12. He says, for reasons that are not clear, the innovation of the living representative was abandoned on the death of the 4th Bab in 1940 AD, and no attempt was made to revive it. So he says, for the reasons that are not clear. He doesn't know why there was only 4 and why the 4 did not continue. Well, you're calling yourself a scholar of the writing of the Bab, which I do not call you a taxonomist. You're not even a curator. The way you put things together, even that is questionable. You just saw some writing and book, and here and there you ask questions and you wrote their names, and that's all you wrote. You don't know nothing of it. Because if you were, and you were going to a book right now on the internet, in the Bayani website, a book that is attributed to be the writing of Azal, and as soon as you open the document, it says, oh, from the writing of the Bab. One of which is the most important one is called actually the Tafsir of the Ha, the interpretation of the letter H. I have it here at page 42 of that book right here. Bab gives the reason by quoting one of the big narrator of Islam called Sheikh Tusi, which has written a book called Al-Ghaybat. I call it occultation, you call it occultation. I don't like to bring the T in for my own reason. But in the page 395 of the book of Al-Ghaybat from Sheikh Tusi, this hadith narrative is there, right there. This tradition is right there. And Bab is quoting, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya Ali ibn Muhammad Samiri. أعظم الله أجر إخوانك فيك فإنك ميت ما بينك وبين 6 أيام فاجمع أمرك ولا توسع إلى عهد فيقوم مقامك بعد وفاتك فقد وقعت الغيبة التامة فلا ظهور إلا بعد إذن الله تعالى ذكره وذلك بعد طول العمد وقسوة القلوب وامتلأ الأرض جورا. He says, in the name of God, the most compassionate, O Mr. Muhammad Samiri, God gives you recompense to you and your brothers. When you died, gather your affairs and do not appoint anybody after yourself after you died, because the grand occultation or occultation has occurred, the grand concealment. There can't be anybody after, only with the permission of God. So the Bab is bringing a tradition from the book of Al-Ghaybat, explaining the questions. You say for this reason that is not clear, because you haven't read the book, mister. If you had read the book of Islam and even the book of the Bab, which you claim to be a, learned about it, you would have read this. The Bab answers it. Imam told him, the fourth one, that nobody else is going to succeed after you. Why? Because the grand hiding or concealment has occurred. And it will not, nobody is to come. This is why. But you don't know it. So I gave you an answer today. Now, after bringing all these objections of the Bab, crazy ones, he goes in this book, try to translate some of the writing of the Bab. If he actually follows what he's translating, he would not ask this kind of questions anymore. So you're wondering, is this his translation, or he paid somebody in jail to translate it for him and he put it in his name, as some of the Persian would have done? That book of Les Miserables was translated by somebody in jail in Iran, from French to Persian, and somebody else put his name on it. Probably this is the case with him too, because this is, he says, chapter 2, gate 2. Chapter 2 of the book of Bayan, gate, he liked to call it gate 2, which actually should not be chapter 2. It should be unit 2, chapter 2. Anyways, this is his translation, and I'm quoting from the writing of the Bab by the translation of this Mr. Mac Eoin. None is permitted to interpret what God has sent down in the Bayan. You're seeing the Bab says that nobody's allowed to interpret the writing, other than to relate all the letters of paradise to him whom God shall manifest, or to his letters of the living. Only the letter of the living, he says. And you're surprised Azal is not one of them, that you say that he could interpret. He says, this is your translation, whom God shall make manifest, which is Baha'u'llah. He says nobody can interpret my writing in the Bayan except Baha'u'llah and the letter of the living. And all the letters of hellfire to the gates of his inferno, for all the letters of the paradise shall be resurrected beneath his shadow, while all the letters of the hell shall be raised up again in the shadow of rejection. What has gone before resembles what is yet to come. There is no alteration in the cause of God. Just as what preceded, what went before resembles, what shall follow that which is yet to come. Your own translation in the page 681. Bob says you cannot interpret my writing, and you're trying to understand it and interpret it, and what are you saying? So now I'm sorry for myself that even I have to read these things. I have to answer the account of all of you people, please forgive me, of a pure asshole. I have to even bring his words up. It bothers me. But it's a part of, falls in my jurisdiction, so I have to say it. Now he draws a conclusion in this book about the writing of the Bab, at a time when everybody knew he's a Baha'i. Okay? This is the composition of Sayyid Ali Muhammad Shirazi in his various guise as Quranic commentator, numerologist, Babul Imam, Messiah, and Prophet, represented the most important body of the sectarian writing period. He actually sees Baha'i faith and the Bab to be a sect of Islam. It's not an independent religion, he says. Then he says, their style is frequently grotesque. Their contents at the times unintelligible. In quality they vary immensely from the innovative and sublime to the downright eccentric and puerile. It's like childish. And yet it had hard to deny their passion or their creativity. Shirazi was a man obsessed. He sees Bab has been obsessed. Obsessed by all things, religious and esoterics, by the untapped possibilities inherent in Shia's theology, and he goes on, by words and concept he had never fully understood. That Bab didn't understand what he's talking about, he says. Words poured from him in an undammed torrent, scarcely controlled, frequently rumbling and incoherent, sometimes poetic, original, and exciting. If he churned out endless reams of all digested Arabic phrases, he also played Dadaisque games. You know, Dadaism? That's what he says Bab was playing. So, this is the conclusion he's making. He goes on. He attacks Kitab Aqdas, called the Kitab Aqdas disappointing. He calls Baha'u'llah a convert of the Bab. The fool is thinking that Baha'u'llah became a Babi and converted to the Babism. So, let's say a few more things about him. How do we get there? What is the mechanism of a person becomes covenant breaker? I tell you how. When you read the writings, Baha'u'llah always advises, when you read it, you have to act upon it. If you don't read and you don't act upon it, which action is not just the obligatory prayers and fasting, it's teaching the cause of God to others, pioneering to places that is hard, so no Baha'is are there. Those are the main two things. The rest of the things that's in the Baha'i faith, everybody else has, and all the religions are there, to be good, to be nice, to be considerate, to be fair, and all that. Those things are not going to be enough for you to get you through. Those actions does not generate enough quality and attributes in you to be able to survive. This is why Baha'u'llah comes and creates a project called Baha'i Faith by revealing it, and then allowing us to go and teach it. Once we teach it to others, we are gaining attribute turbocharge. Every time you teach, quite a few attributes you're carrying at a time. You become brave, you become generous, you become forgiving, you become obedient, many good things. As a result, you become spiritual. When you're spiritual, your understanding is different. He is broken the rule that's already in Quran. What does Quran says in the very first chapter? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This book, or that book, there's no doubt that it is a guidance for the pious and virtuous, not for scientists. Not for, if you are a scientist, you're knowledgeable, you're a philosopher, you want to come and find what is in Quran, you're going to go dead in no time. But if you're pious, you know what's wrong, but you don't know what's right, then the book helps you out. Or else you would not be sis. We made it like that. So, Mr. Mac Eoin and people like him, they read the books and they find out these kind of things. Controversial matters. They have no answer for it. The problem is installed in the head. There was a problem in writing a Baha'u'llah or Bab or Abdu'l. What do we do about it? And then you keep going. Then you have more questions. More questions, but you have no answer for it. Conditions to piety and spirituality or not, but you keep putting more and more questions in your head that there's no answer for it, or you can't find an answer for it. Then at one point, your questions are bigger than your answer. It topples your character other way around. This is what happened to him. Happened to many other people. I'm going to tell you, those who are Baha'is, sometimes are sincere Baha'is, but there is a statement that they give, you say, there's a Denis Mac Eoin in every one of them. Maybe just one or two. One question comes in, all of a sudden, this man is not what he thinks he is. Self-deceiving. Most of all, we deceive ourselves and we don't know what we're saying. Ayatollah Khomeini has a book in defense of the Shiites against the Wahhabis, the Sunnis of Saudi Arabia. In the book he says, they claim that they're real Muslims, but they're not. The real Muslims were those who conquered Iran with few soldiers. That word. Those who conquered Iran with few soldiers. Well, then he says all those people that they attacked Iran were the real Muslims, but they were all enemy of Imam Ali. They were all covenant breaker. What does Ayatollah say? Does he know what he's talking about? He's not the only one. I'm going to bring next topic about the Baha'is, the scholars, that they say strange stuff in their writings and their books. I could trace Denis Mac Eoin, a little one in them already. So, if we approach academically, this guy calls himself, an academic, then we have to understand, according to Baha'i faith, unless you have disagreed with it, bring the proof. A man is mineral substance that is put through a program that we call the vegetable state, vegetable spirit. Because of the vegetable that we are, our body doesn't rot. It circles and cycles, recycles, so it keeps it alive. That's the vegetable spirit. On it is installed senses, makes the vegetable to look like an animal. Then it walks. So an animal is a combination of senses plus the vegetable state, plus the minerals. A human has a further program installed on his head, humanity, thinking. Just like animal, but he thinks too. And the prophet of God is something else, a different species. It's not man. He has the body of the man, but he's not actually a man as we know it. In comparison, a man is never a good animal. If you compare a man with an animal, his sight is not as good, his instinct is not as strong, his running is not good, his sound listening is not great. Many things are not good in him. He's a bad animal, human being, but he's thinking power, and that makes him over others. Prophets of God are human plus something else. That plus makes them prophet. There are different dimensions. I've given this example before to you. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they were arguing whether the earth is round or not. All of a sudden a shepherd shows up and says, "Oh, I heard you. Can I say something?" They look at him. "What?" He says, "Oh, the earth is round." They tell him, "The earth is round." "How?" He says, "I was up there." They tell him, "How could you be up there?" He says, "I was up there. I looked at it. It was round." The shepherd did not need any knowledge. He just looked at it. He does not know none of the mathematics, none of the logic, none of the physics, chemistry, nothing that Aristotle or Plato knows. Those guys with all the tools, they want to see that it's around. Shepherds up there and he saw it. In this example, prophets or God are like that. There are different dimensions. Reading, writing, anything is irrelevant to him. He knows where things goes. Well, look at it. Now, if you study a prophet of God as a human, it will be a disastrous human being. Just like a man is a disastrous animal. The actions of the prophets of God are not understandable. Many words they say are strange. The mother and the brother of Jesus Christ comes at the door. They say, "Your mother and parents, the brothers coming here." He shouts at them. Says, "Who's my mother? Who's my brother?" Then he looks at his disciples and says, "These are my family." And then everybody says, "Holy Mary." This is not what the Bible says. Now you understand what this means? Well, if there's a place to attack or go like that, Denis Mac Eoin better get to the Islam and Christianity just as well, and Judaism, and write all the same account. I can guide him. He can write the same type of book about them too. So what? I don't even call him an atheist. An atheist really doesn't believe in God, and he has a different perspective. This man is not an atheist. Certainly is not a scientific approach towards an academic. Why would he say Bob is obsessed? That's the word of a psychologist to say that. You're not it. How do you know? Because clearly you're a man full of hatred. I don't know who made you to feel that way. I doubt it, because after 1977 you were sucking up to the Baha'is each way that you can. You go get their documentation and write the books, and at the same time you were associating with the Azalis in Tehran. Baha'is, they didn't know where you're going. If they knew, they could not even talk to you, mister. They would excommunicate you on the spot. But you lied. So what do we call you? Vandalism of the truth. That's what your book should be called. This book, Messiah of Shiraz, and the critiques, I call it Vandalism of the Truth. Written by Denis Mac Eoin. God be with you. You can call me and come down. We can straighten this up. You still have time, okay? But it's totally unfair, because Bob is dead. Baha'u'llah is not here, but I'm here. You're insulting all the conscience of the Baha'is. And what are your reasons for it? there's much more to you and your writing that we can see here. It will be found later on.